We are on with my friend Josh, and Josh has grown up in the few years since I've seen him. He was when I spoke to him as a young man. We talked about the Sustainable Development Goals at an ice cream shop, and
Perfect.
I am really excited to talk to him because I never forgot him. And my colleague said, "Why don't we have Josh talk?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Because I never forgot him." So, Josh, one of the things I was asking you when we were offline was what's important to you. And you were talking about education.
Yeah.
And if we gave you a document and said, we don't care about facts, we just want you to write down what you see through your lens that could better educate, that could provide better education and any other thoughts you had about education, tell us now what those thoughts would be.
Okay, yeah. So thank you for the question, because I really see that a lot of the problems that are in at least America are problems to do with nutrition, problems to do with depression, and problems to do with a lot of psychological things, and not understanding what we need to understand to be functioning adults. Because in our schooling systems, we are not taught things that will help us later on specifically. We are taught things that help us to draw conclusions in work, in jobs, but not things that help our mental health. America has one of the highest obesity rates in the world, and yet in basic schooling, we do not teach nutrition. There's a clear connection to those things. I can see it. I mean, these are just basic things that I think that we should make it a law that all schools should teach nutrition from an early grade, because you're schooling as an individual, as a student, that is the basis for your understanding of the world. And when your basis for the understanding of the world isn't preparing you to solve the problems that the world throws at you, then your school system is failing you. And that's not acceptable, because if we are going to be raising the future generations, then we need to be equipping them to solve the future's problems. Yeah, I mean, to be more specific, I said nutrition. I think that, yeah, we have the highest obesity rates. We should be trying to fix that. Proactively saying that, yeah, maybe we can't snap our fingers and do away with unhealthy, all of this unhealthy mindsets, but we can make an effort to teach those who are going to have to struggle with this perhaps in the future. Make an effort to have them understand how they can prevent it. Nutrition prevents obesity, not as textbook and as play by play as that, but it is a step in the right direction. I think that that's what we need to be doing. Steps in the right direction, steps towards schooling, because schooling, as I said before, is the basis for young people's understandings. And we have mental health issues, deaths of despair are rocketing. So if we taught mental health from a young age, that you can reach out and that there are people there for you, but not obviously not just that, but things that matter, not just saying, but really doing, really walking you through things. Because we get tons of anti-bullying assemblies that mean nothing, because it's just a tired old same thing over and over again. It's just there's nothing that's really connecting with the students. It's just kind of talking to a wall, and it's not really enough.
I love just your commitment is seen in your words. And one of the things that this whole thing is about with the Creators 2030, another group called the Three Peacemakers, who is behind this, Sherry, Methvin, and David, and all of us who are working together as a consortium, is to bring the indigenous community. This is really what's going on here. And these blueprints are inside of the indigenous community of 1,000 nations coming together. And so I would like to know your thoughts on having the indigenous community have their own General Assembly and their own United Nations. And it's happening. We're not like hoping. We're all creating that together with the Three Peacemakers. And so I'd like to know what you think about that.
When you say indigenous, do you mean native? Just to clarify.
Yes, native from
Okay,
all over the world.
that's okay. So yeah, that's wonderful. That actually really makes me happy, because specifically for America, we came in the beginning of America as we know it, and we committed genocide. We slaughtered the indigenous people and left them with nothing. We took America the free from those who originally had it. That tired old lie, America the free, the land of the free, it has never been the land of the free. for a specific group of people based on race. It has, but for everyone else, it has been this place where you just can't get ahead because policies are worked against you, because the government doesn't want to help you, because they are constantly sowing division. The land of the United States of America, that's starting to sound more like a trademark than a real philosophy. That's starting to sound more like a brand that we just slap on things and we ship them out so that people are like, oh, the land of the free, the United States. But that's an empty lie. And we do not have to accept tired old lies from those who have just spoon fed us this information that has absolutely no validation. Because as I said, America has never been the land of the free for everyone. And I cannot understand the experience of people who have been more downtrodden. And that's what I hear people say all the time. I couldn't possibly understand what it's like. Yeah, exactly. Because we're not taught what it's like. Because we are not taught this. Because in kindergarten, we are told that the indigenous people and the pilgrims sat down for a Thanksgiving feast. That is what we are told. Either don't teach us that or teach us what really happened. I'm not saying that kindergartners need to be traumatized, but I'm saying that we should at least not be spoon feeding our children lies, because that's what it is. It's propaganda, right? I mean, that's all it is. There's no excuse. There's no excuse because we know, and yet the textbooks don't reflect that, and that's not acceptable. To get to really what you said about how the indigenous people are having a United Nations of their own, and a United Nations that's solely, so I think that that's wonderful, because the problems of the indigenous people, I assume that in other countries they have been done like they have been done here, and if that is true, then I've always thought that we need to unite, we need to band together. Those who are similar should band together. We have poor people somehow are apart, are not together, are blaming each other for each other's problems. And it's just this so it's good to hear that indigenous people are banding together. And I think that since they understand their suffering, they're not having their world leader is who is living in this lavish world, completely removed from society, speak for them. No, 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 no. They are speaking for themselves. And that's extremely important, because when you get representation for everyone, only then can democracy flourish. Only then can democracy function. And when you do not have representation for everyone, then it's good to have at least a group that is trying to explain their experience, because then we who are ignorant can listen in on that and can kind of gather that insight, so we can say, oh, okay, so that's what they're suffering. That's what their suffering is. So we can try and understand and try and help, because one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite songs is, "When ignorance reigns, life is lost," and that's true. And so having these communities like the indigenous people working together in their own United Nations summit thing is really important, because then people who are removed from that experience can listen in, and then we can all become more educated together, and we can reflect what our countries have told us that we are, so we can really become this United States, this united globe, this united front against the issues that plague the country, the globe, and we can really work together, and that's important.
So the indigenous community really is coming together. It's not like just for a summit. They're building a building. They will have their own, like their own set of laws, their own constitution. What would you do if someone said, Josh, I would love for you to write part of a piece of the Constitution of your own opinion for the General Assembly of the Indigenous Nations? What would you write?
Okay. Well, I think that I would start off by saying that for the indigenous people, so one of the biggest issues that has been working against the indigenous people has been those who have taken their land, coming in and just ravishing their lands, pushing them out, and taking. That's it. Destroying their homes and forcing them into these little reservations. Well, I would say that they, instead of having this kind of this kind of document that you just sign away your life and sign away your land and your home. That there needs to be some sort of an understanding, a meeting where you are both on the same kind of a level. Because I think that what I've learned, the books that the little children's books that I've read, where Indigenous people are sat down with the person who's going to take their land, and then they sign a contract, and then suddenly they don't have anything. And so being on the same level, being understanding, being able to punish those who exploit, because that's a big thing, exploitation. We need to be able to punish those who exploit. So I would put on the Constitution that any deal for Indigenous lands needs to be very clear, and there needs to be no fine print. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of just what I've seen. And well, not what I've seen, but what I can conclude is happening. I don't know how close that is to what's actually happening, but I think that's some sort of a little line that says that there can't be any fine print, that everybody needs to be on the same page.
Okay. When it comes down to climate, okay, and the future of climate, the indigenous community understands the earth in ways that we never could, okay? What would you, if you could write something in the blueprint about the indigenous community um, with youth, and this would be something that would actually happen, what would you write down about that for the indigenous community in regard to the youth and climate?
Okay, well, let's see. So, so I think that, like you said, the Indigenous people understand the climate in different ways than we do, and perhaps in more insightful ways. So I think that we can view them as a opinion that needs to be heard, as a resource, but not in like a we must take this resource kind of a way, but they are a resource. We are a resource. Everybody can work together, and so their voice is unique, and perhaps they know more than we do. So maybe we need to step down, and we need to give them a chance to voice their opinions. And I'm sure that that's not what you're looking for, more of a something to go in a constitution. But I guess you could say that whenever I don't here, let me see. So I think that anytime, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. What I'm asking is, how would you see, so indigenous people are actually more than a resource. They understand the land. They were here with the land before any of us in any country. So understanding that and knowing that, okay, what would you like to see in a blueprint for youth moving forward, going through with their life and understanding climate? How could the indigenous community, you think, and the youth, I'm going to put it in another way, how could they work together?
Okay. Thank you for the clarification, but let's see. So I think that they could work together to make themselves more heard, because like I said before, the indigenous, and like we've all said, the indigenous people know the climate better than those who are destroying it, because like you said, they were there first, right? They were the ones who originally were there when it wasn't messed up. So maybe they could have some sort of an insight. So they need to express that insight. They should band together like they have, and make sure that their voice is heard. And so having their own summit is good, but I think that to really have this understanding that is unique to them, heard by those, is, oh, I'm sorry, am I still there?
Yes, you're here. I'm listening.
Okay.
We're listening.
For me, everything phased out. Sorry. Okay, so for them to be able to make change, they need to be listened to. And so for an area that they originally, so say for the United States, we had the indigenous people in areas. So say we want to do some sort of a project in that area, something in that area, we have to listen to them. Okay, we need to listen to them. That would be a good law, and that actually makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so if we try to go into their area and we want to build something or do something in an area that they were indigenous to, then we have to listen to them, the natives who know the area like no one else. And we can't just brush them off. If they say that we can't do this here, then we don't do it there. I think that kind of makes sense with the environment. But then for climate, they understand more sustainable ways to be doing things. So they need leadership positions. We need to put them in positions of leadership where they can be the ones who are spearheading spearheading a more sustainable future, because they were witness to a more sustainable past, and they were here before we messed everything up. So giving them positions of leadership, making sure that before we go into an area where they were native to, we consult them. That's
My last question to you, Josh. I want you to share everything that you'd like to see put in the document about what you're passionate about, what's important to you. Okay? Whatever subject matter, it does not matter. It doesn't matter if you go from one other subject to a whole different subject. I would like to know what you would like to see in a blueprint for the future for youth.
okay.
That's important to you.
Okay, so I think that it's very important for everybody to have their voice heard, for representation to not be unique to a certain type of person, for everybody to be confident, and for everybody to have that confidence and that ability to speak out, because we're foster currently we're in this world where you're just another peg, right? You're just another pawn. You're not really unique. You're not told by any sort of a system that you're different, because you're just going to have another desk job for the most part. And we need to break out of that mold, because there's more. There's another way. There's more, because I think that for youth to be able to shape the future that they are going to inherit, they need to be able to be listened to, and they need to have the confidence. So going back to schooling, we need to be teaching public speaking at a very basic level, obviously public speaking very at a young age, so that you're developing that confidence. And because in my grade, I hear kids all the time, oh, I'm so anxious, I'm so nervous. Okay, well, maybe, or before like a big presentation that you have to give in front of the whole class, these are the things that I hear, like anxiety, nervousness. If we'd been teaching how to not be nervous, obviously very basic how to not be nervous, but how to not be nervous at a basic level in kindergarten, then perhaps we wouldn't have the same problems. We would have been building confidence. And so now you're in ninth grade, right? You have that confidence. Now you're going to be a force to be reckoned with. You're going to be going out in the world, imposing your will, and speaking out the things that you're passionate about. So if I were to kind of have my say on what the blueprint for the youth, for youth of the world to be, well, make sure that youth are confident, and make sure that they have support so that they can share their viewpoints, because obviously there are many people who have unique lives and unique experiences. So we need to listen to that experience, because like I said before, we don't know what it's like to be someone else until we've heard from them. We are ignorant until we're enlightened. And so to kind of pave the road for that enlightenment, we need to be making sure that people are confident enough that they can share their experience, so that we can be more united and more understanding of each other. Yeah.
All right, this is my last question. I have to ask you this. What has COVID taught you being at home?
Okay. COVID has taught me being at home that we need human interaction, and we need to understand that our mental health is important, and we need to understand ways that we can help ourselves, because during COVID we weren't able to see people that could help us. Like, I don't mean family members, I mean like there are people who are first priority and there are people who are not. So I wasn't able to, in a very basic way, I wasn't able to go to the store. Obviously that's not okay. Yeah, so I wasn't able to go see a psychiatrist during COVID. I didn't need to, but for someone who did, they may not have been able to, because all of this mix up of this, like you're at home, you're not allowed to go into places, everything was more difficult to get help. And I think that we learned very quickly that we didn't know how to help ourselves, and we didn't. How can I? Well, we didn't have competent. Okay, I'm just gonna skip that. Yeah, so we didn't know how to help ourselves. I think that's something we learned. And mental health is important, right? Communication is important. Face to face communication is important. Something that I've learned from COVID is that staring at a computer all day is not enough because it sucks away that excitement. Because when I'm in school, I'm very enthusiastic. I answer every question, but when I'm virtual, I still try, but it's not the same because you're not getting the same back and forth. And so I think that's something we should learn. We can apply that. That technology is less than human interaction. I think that we can apply that to our day-to-day lives. How much time do we spend wasting away on our screens, doing nothing, making no progress ever, just wasting away, missing opportunities because you've just been looking down at this empty abyss of color that's just taking away your soul. I mean, that's obviously very dramatic, but I think that we can learn that we've spent enough time on screens and it's time to get back into the real world, right? Per se, the real world. Like, I spend like 6 hours a day doing schoolwork, homework, everything on screen, staring at the screen. And so when that's all done, I think that we need to take ourselves away. We need to enjoy the moment. And I've learned from COVID that the moment is important and that we need to stop looking for a distraction, looking for something to remove us, and that it's okay to be bored and that you have to find creative ways to entertain yourself. You can't just run away into this mystical world, this shiny object, this screen, because it's nothing. Because we're already on it so much. Human interaction is important and it can't be replaced.
Well, I thank you so much, Josh, and I hope that this was as much fun for you as it was for us.
Very exciting. Yeah.
Yes, and I have to say, you make us feel older when we see you getting older, and you're not the little boy that I met a couple of years ago. It's great to see you grow up and be so clear minded and of your thoughts and the lens. And this is why we ask the youth to come to get their thoughts, their insights about the lens they're looking through, and not a lot of times we keep saying the youth of the future, but then they just sit on the sidelines.
Exactly.
Or we do something else now. This is also to the youth. The youth will say, I want this, I want that, and they'll listen to what they hear, and then they'll repeat what they heard rather than use their own voice.
Exactly. Because that's what we're taught. We're taught to regurgitate information as opposed to use it to draw conclusions.
Exactly. But it's not only that you're taught, that's just a natural progression of being a human being. Okay? It's just a natural progression of being a human being. People learn in different ways. Okay? And sometimes it's not always what they learn from home because, youth go to school, they have friends, they learn from their other friends, they learn from what they see around them. So it's an open situation. We never know what we're going to learn. But I just appreciate your perspective. Okay. And I sure hope we're going to keep in contact with you more now so that we don't see each other every few years. And please say hello to your mother and father.
Thank you so much. This was a really great opportunity. I really appreciate you reaching out. That was really nice. I don't know if you could tell, but I really enjoyed that.
We did. Yeah. We enjoyed you. We totally enjoyed you. And I really hope the people over on LiveHOPE, on Com26, on the Creates 2030, please go back and listen to what this young man had to say, because what he has shared that you have already missed is so much common sense. And as I said earlier in this broadcast, common sense is not common. So thank you, everyone, and have a great Saturday.